Well, hi everybody. Welcome to this prefix. And so let's just say I didn't want to put it as an appendix because this is a long exegetical look at the first nine verses of this chapter 28, the resurrection chapter of the Gospel Kata Mathayan. And I want to welcome you guys before you go into the bulk of the study. I just want to introduce some things, and I wanted to change some things around. I want to change the furniture around just a little bit, add a couple of pieces of furniture here and switch some things up. In the body, no pun intended, in the body of the study, I said there are 5 exhibits. Now, I classified the witnesses, meaning the witnesses to the anastasis, the resurrection of Jesus, the bodily resurrection of Jesus, by the way, somatika anastasis to Yesu, the bodily resurrection of Jesus. I classify the witnesses as not Jehovah's Witnesses, not them, but the witnesses to our precious Lord's resurrection as an exhibit. I'm going to change that, and I'm going to add some exhibits to the exhibits that already exist in our study. Now, I had the first exhibit as the body of Jesus, the body that he received, they had as a birthday suit. I'm going to change that though. I'm going to put that as number, basically as number 2. So I'm going to change a couple of things around, and so that's just the deal. Now, there are going to be 6 exhibits of pieces of information for the court of God. He's the great prosecutor. He's prosecuting humanity, for not believing in this, those who don't believe, and so that's just the deal. So number 1, the first exhibit, all right, is the cross, because without the cross there's no death, and without death there's no resurrection. So the cross of Christ, stauros, the cross of Christ, is the first exhibit that I want to mention. Before the resurrection took place, there was the cross, and after the resurrection they still had the cross. So that's a piece of evidence that he was crucified, that he was killed. Now Islam doesn't believe that he was killed, but so what? Who cares? We don't care what they believe. We care what the Bible teaches. Understand what I'm saying? So that's exhibit A in the court of God. Exhibit number 2 is the body of Jesus. The body of Jesus was raised from the dead ones. Ton necron is always in the plural. Necron, dead ones, or dead, is in the plural always. That's exhibit number 2. So exhibit number 3, basically, is the slab of rock that he was on. Because even the angels said in this chapter to the women, come and see where he was lying. So that has to be in the pool of exhibits in the court of God. So you have number 1, the cross; number 2, the body of Jesus; number 3, and so what I'm saying, the slab of rock that he was on, that his body was on, that the angels were basically at after Jesus was risen from the dead, showing where was the head laying at, and where was the feet laying at. You understand? Almost reminds me of the mercy seat, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so exhibit number 1 on the cross, number 2, the soma, the body of Jesus, soma, Greek word soma, and the rock, the place, the rock. I don't care what it is, if it was a lithos or petros, whatever it was, but it was a slab, it was a stone that he was on. He wasn't on the floor. He was on a rock. He was on a flat surface. Now let me just mention something before I go to the other exhibits, 4 through 6. If Jesus' body would have decomposed like any other body, now it didn't, because of the prophecy, that will not, Greek word lo, that will not allow your Holy One to see corruption, diaphathata. In Greek, diaphathata, corruption, decay. In Hebrew, it's actually shachat. Shachat. That's Sheen, Chet, and either a Tau or a Tav or a Tet there. That's the last letter. Some A classes sprinkled underneath some of those consonants. You understand what I'm saying? So the Holy One, Chassid. Jesus is called Chassid, the Holy One, the pious one, the kind one, in a religious context. According to Psalm 16, verse 10, some Greek Septuagints has it as Psalm 15, verse 10. Of course, Hebrew Bibles has it at 16:10. At least the ones that I saw. English translations has it as 16:10, Psalm 16:10. He didn't see corruption, but I'm just saying, if his body would have saw corruption like everybody else's body sees corruption, you understand what I'm saying? Then his bones would have been collected a year after the body decayed during the decaying process. Okay, and it would have been all those bones would have been there for about a year in the tomb. The tomb would have been opened up, and the bones would have been collected and would have been put in a specific ossuary with his name on it. Okay, and a prominent figure like that, Jesus would have had, a special ossuary done. Okay, decorated and stuff like that with his first name and title. This idea that they found the ossuary of Jesus, that's just a whole bunch of garbage, because Matthew, the disciple, wasn't even a part of the family. They found a whole bunch of ossuaries, which are stone boxes, chests, if you will, full of bones, of people with common names that matched Jesus' name, which was very common at that time, and some other names that was affiliated with Jesus, like Mariah, Matthew. Yeah, but Matthew wasn't even part of the family. He wasn't part of the family. He was a disciple. So he wouldn't have been buried with Jesus, so that's out. Okay, so there's this idea, the lost tomb of Jesus and all this hogwash. I mean, it's just hogwash. That's just all there is to it. It's propaganda, and a lot of people bought it, and that's just the deal. So it would have been the bones would have been collected and stuff like that. But we all know that Jesus didn't see decay. He didn't see decay because of the prophecy. There's two Hebrew negatives there in Psalm 16, verse 10. Law is a Hebrew negative, law, and then another law that will not allow your Holy One to see corruption. Even before that, you will not abandon my soul in Sheol. You understand what I'm saying? That's just a deal. Now, I want to say very quickly, because this is a prefix, I don't want it to be too long, that the fourth exhibit has to be the linen wrappings. It has to be the linen wrappings, because that's the first thing that the disciples saw. One of them entered into the tomb, Peter. The other one did not, John, at least at that time anyway. The first time they came running to the tomb, the Apostle John, he saw the linen wrappings. So he saw that piece of evidence, and the Apostle Peter saw it and entered, and he saw the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? So that has to be an exhibit in a court of God. Exhibit number 4. And exhibit number 5 is the shroud. What do you mean the shroud? Well, the shroud, the face cloth, the towel, the sweat towel, the face cloth, the handkerchief that was over his head. Okay? Now, the reason why it says that they believed, or at least one of them believed. I mean, not necessarily that the other one didn't, but that there was belief at the tomb. Let's just put it like that. That Jesus was risen from the dead, that he was there, and that he was risen from the dead. He was there no more, because the two items were separate from each other. Now, if it was just a spiritual resurrection, that Jesus just was a spirit without a soma, without a body, there's a possibility, but I'm just going to mention this. If it was just a spirit existence, okay, well then the thing is that he would have in scenario number 1, he would have slipped out of there and would have left the cocoon there. But there wouldn't have been any disturbed grave clothes. if you want to call it grave clothes. That's what Norman Geisler called it in his interview with CRI, when CRI was really CRI and not playing around. You understand what I'm saying? And probably you're going to see the same thing in his book, his great book, The Battle for the Resurrection, Norman Geisler, Dr. Norman Geisler, who passed away several years ago. So they were disturbed. Okay, the napkin was folded somewhere else, apart from the linen clothes. Okay, now we all know, because of the study, that Jesus was with his disciples for 3.5 years, teaching them. Okay, from the scriptures, what had to be, and some new thing he introduced, which we know as part of the New Testament, and so they when you stay with somebody for such a long time, okay, their habits, their folding habits, their cleaning habits, the way they leave their clothes and stuff like that, if you're staying in the same place with them and all that other stuff. So they knew how he folded his clothes and kept things in order and all this other stuff, or whatever the case may be. So they knew that he had a routine. Okay, he did things in order, and so he didn't, change that order, it looks like, because they recognized the way those clothes were apart from each other, especially the napkin, how it was folded up and stuff like that. And they said to themselves, well, this is, Jesus folded his clothes like that, like the way this napkin or shroud or whatever the case may be is folded up, apart from the linen cloth. So it had to be Jesus. And I gave you the example of my wife. Okay, if my wife is on a journey, now she's messy sometimes. Let's just put it like that. She's a dear person, sweet and all that stuff, but she's not as clean as I am. Let's just put it like that. Okay, it's the odd couple. I mean, it's just that's just a deal. You got the other odd couple. You understand what I'm saying? So that's just it. So she's not as clean as I am. So like if somebody says to me, well, Riza came back from I don't know, I don't care where, from Australia. I don't care where we were, And I say she came back, and I know she was on a journey, to Australia like that, for example, And then they say, yeah, go to your house, because she just got up from sleep and stuff like that. I just spoke to her. Yeah, but she didn't tell me. I would say she didn't tell me that she was going to come. So I run to the house, just to mimic the disciples and stuff like that, whatever. And then I see, and I left everything in order. I left everything clean, meaning the bed, all the sheets were folded up, the pillows were nice and everything like that, because that's how I roll. And then I see everything in a messed up way, like my wife will leave it. That's a stark piece of evidence, because I've been living with my wife for 6 years, almost 6 years. It's going to be this year, December the 14th. I got married to her in 2018. This is 2024 right now. And so I know exactly how she leaves her stuff in a messed up way. But if I see that messed up way, on the bed, that's a stark piece of evidence that she was there. Now, if I go to the kitchen table, and then you have, milk dust all over the place, powder that you make, the hot milk, and I left it clean, and is grimy and gringy and dirty, well, I know that's her. That's her. Now, the opposite of that is true. I mean, Jesus is just the neat and tidy Jesus. The clean Jesus, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way he left things had to resonate, okay, with the disciples for 3.5 years, and was remembered at the dome. You understand what I'm saying? It's that's the way he folded things. That's the way he left things, and he did it here, just to identify that he was here and get that sort of identification or calling card to his disciples. You understand what I'm saying? All right. All right, so exhibit number 1, the cross. Number 2, the slab of rock, or actually the soma of Jesus, the actual body of Jesus. Okay, number 3, the slab of rock that he was on. Okay. Number 4, the linen wrappings. You know what I'm saying? Number 5, the handkerchief or the shroud. And I already mentioned in the body of this series called the Anastasis series, the Resurrection of Jesus series. Hope you're enjoying it. That there would have been DNA, okay, in that shroud and in those linen wrappings. It's impossible to hide DNA like that. There would have been hair samples of Jesus. If DNA was around at that time, okay, it wasn't discovered by man yet, though. But it was around, but it wasn't discovered by man. A lot of things were around. Transportation system in the body, electrical impulses, stuff like that, whatever the case may be. The number of blood, A positive, O negative, or whatever the case may be. That stuff was around already. It wasn't classified by men yet. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, it was just like the animals were around, but they weren't named yet by Adam. That took place later. The discovery of DNA took place around 1989, by the way, and was used in court. So that's just a deal. Now we're in court right now, the court of God. So exhibit number 4 would be the linen wrappings. Number 5, the shroud. And last but not least, the empty tomb. That's exhibit 6. Or exhibit, let me see, A, B, C, D, E, F. You understand what I'm saying? Now, the witnesses, I'm going to cloud them together, the cloud of witnesses, you understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna put that together in a separate pool, no pun intended, because we were talking about the two items being separate from each other, the linen and what you call it, I used to love that candy bar, by the way, you understand what I'm saying? The shroud. So I'm not gonna put witnesses as exhibits. Okay, I think exhibits are just pieces of information, either cassettes or CDs or digital recordings or DNA samples or clothing and stuff like that. I mean, those are exhibits. You understand what I'm saying? So physical, tangible things, and nowadays things that you can hear or whatever the case, whatever. And then the witnesses, meaning the 500 witnesses or so, including the angels first, though. Those are the first witnesses. The angels, the angelic beings, whether they be Michael and some other angelic beings. Okay. Incidentally, if it was Michael on the tomb, because he happens to be the warrior, well, that knocks out the theory that Jesus is Michael, because he said he is not here. If you seek Jesus, I know who you're seeking. You're seeking Jesus. He's not here. Now, if that was Michael speaking, well, it blows away the theory that Jesus was the Archangel Michael, doesn't it, though? Everything else does in the Bible anyway, blows away that theory. We don't need that, circumstantial evidence, because we don't have the name. We don't have the name of the angel who sat on the tomb with ease and authority and power. You understand what I'm saying? We don't need that. But I'm just saying, if, and, or a, you understand what I'm saying? If then, protasis, apodosis in Greek, you understand what I'm saying? If is a apodosis and, protasis, and then apodosis will be the then statement. If this, then that, protasis, apodosis, you understand what I'm saying? So that's just the deal. Then that theory is knocked out. But we don't need it. That's just gravy on the top if it was him. But, who cares? If the Bible doesn't say. So the Bible doesn't really care to mention who it was, but I'm just saying. So I want to mention something about the 500 witnesses, because people could be confused, and this is a good question to answer. If 500 people were raised from the dead, okay, 500 people were raised from the dead, or 500, whatever the case may be. If those were indeed the witnesses that were, to Jesus' resurrection, and they were raised from the dead after, Greek word meta, see verses 52 and 53 of this gospel, Matthew chapter 27, actually a chapter of 4, the crucifixion chapter. It says that Jesus rose again, and then after that, the bodies of the saints came out of the tombs, and whatever the case may be, That's why it calls him the first fruits. That's why it calls him the firstborn from the dead. Read Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and 18. 18 answers 15 in that book, because after the crucifixion, you understand what I'm saying? Jesus was the first one to be raised from the dead. Jehovah's Witnesses could say, well, why, well, there were other people raised from the dead in the Old Testament, but we're not talking about the Old Testament. We're not talking about the man who said, my head, and died. We're not talking about, anybody else. You understand what I'm saying? Samuel, who wasn't raised bodily, but who was raised from Sheol. That's evident in chapter 28 of 1 Samuel. Okay, and so he came up, scared the witch half to death. You understand what I'm saying? And Saul said, so sexy and sassy, what does he look like? He looked like the same guy who told you, that not to do certain things and stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? That's just the deal. So, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about people that were raised from the dead in the Old Testament. We're talking about he's the firstborn after the crucifixion. That's what it means. That's how to answer the witnesses, according to the firstborn theory that they have, that he's the first creature created. It doesn't use katasis, the Greek word katasis, for creation. Strictly is very straight-jacketed Greek word. Katasis, yes, it means founding of a city and stuff like that, or whatever the institution. I understand that, but it's this very strict, narrow word that strictly means, for the most part, creation or creature. That's found and recorded for the creatures that Jesus made, verse 15 of chapter 1 of Colossians. But I wanted to mention about the 500 witnesses, because if they were raised from the dead, they weren't raised as teenagers. Okay, they weren't raised as teenagers. Okay, they're the people that were raised from the dead, that died at the at the time of the Old Testament, or like that before the cross, like, you know what I'm saying? The reason why, some of them fell asleep in such a short space in time, like the Apostle Paul says, because it's kind of surprising. Why would some of them fall asleep so fast? Well, I don't know. The Apostle Paul died in the known date is really 64 A.D. He was beheaded in 64 A.D. right, by Rome. So that's the cutting off point for any book of the Apostle Paul. Okay. So 1 Corinthians had to be written before 64 AD or whatever the case may be. You understand? So let's say Jesus was raised from the dead like 33 AD. And so you have 31 years after that for these witnesses to be alive and to be mentioned by the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. So what's the deal? The deal is that, let's say some of these people were raised from the dead, according to Matthew chapter 27, verses 52 and 53, and talking about those pool of witnesses that went into the holy city and appeared to many. I'm talking about those. You understand what I mean? After, Greek word meta, again, after the resurrection of Jesus. The reason why is that if some of them were, let's say, 70, well, they would have been 100 years old at the time of, at the turn of the year 64. So you can understand that some of them would have died. If they would have been, if they would have been just 60, well, I mean, they would have been 90, and that's old, with diseases and the lack of medicine and stuff like that, whatever the case may be. You can understand why some of them fell asleep. Even if they were around 50 years old, well, I mean, 50 and 30 is 80, and around, they would have reached that around 64 AD. And so then, well, QED, like Martin Lloyd-Jones used to say, some of them probably would have died at the age of 70 or 75 or 78 or whatever, or 80 or whatever the case may be, or even before that, because, like, the Apostle Paul died when he died. Okay. Right? So that explains really sort of the question, why does the Apostle Paul say that, he appeared unto 500, okay, but some of them remain unto this day, until the day of the Apostle Paul, but some have fallen asleep. Well, that's the reason why, because they weren't resurrected to be 2 years old again. They were resurrected to be at the age that they were when they died. That's all. Just like when Samuel came up from Sheol, he came up looking like he did when he died. Older, seasoned, prophet, if you will, to be respectable. Instead of saying old, seasoned. You understand what I'm saying? He looked like himself when he died. He didn't appear like somebody else, because that would have been fraudury. You're not gonna, he's not gonna die and then be in Sheol looking like something else. That's gonna come later when the body is transformed and made newer, like the flesh of a child and all that stuff. That's gonna come later. That Samuel is gonna look younger and all this other stuff. You understand what I'm saying? That's gonna look younger. So again, Norman Geisler said that, just picture Adam at his best. Adam at his best, Adam. Now, in the body of the study, I actually gave you the real name of Eve, Adam's wife. Hawa. Hawa. It's not Eve. Okay, we that's English or whatever it is. Hawa actually is the real name of Eve, and that's recorded in many places, but that's recorded especially in Genesis chapter 4, Bereshit, which is Genesis in Hebrew, 4, 1, I believe. So that's just the deal. But, just picture Adam at his, in his best condition, in his best state, best physical state, whether that be when he was 30, his prime, whether that be when he was 21 or when that be when he was 25. That's how he's going to be resurrected from the dead. He's not going to be resurrected as a baby. He's not going to be resurrected as an old man with those kinds of bodies. Okay, it's going to be at their best, and we're going to be locked in for all eternity. Okay, at our prime. Okay, never to grow old again, and never to die again. Just like Christ. Christ will never die again. Death has no more dominion over him. Well, this is Angelo Quinones. I hope you liked this prefix. I know it's kind of long, but let me get into the body of the study now as I get into the Greek of the first 9 verses of this very important chapter, which is was one of the 4 resurrection chapters, really 5 if you count 1 Corinthians chapter 15. But the account of Jesus, there are 4 resurrection chapters. Matthew chapter 28, Mark chapter 16, Luke chapter 24, and John chapter 20. And this chapter, we're looking at this chapter from verses 1 through 9 according to the Greek. We already looked at it from verses 1 through 14, something like that, according to the English. So I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Bye. This is Angelo Quinones. Just in case I put this apart, just stay tuned for the study. But just in case I put this apart, from the study, which I'll probably do, is this Angelo Quinones giving glory to God the Father, to the Lord Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Spirit. God is not the God of the dead, nekron, but of the living. And that means that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were very much alive at the time that Jesus said those words. Please subscribe to my channel. Please give me a thumbs up, and please leave a comment on the screen. And by the way, Jesus has a God because he was risen from the dead by the glory of the Father. That's why he has a God. That's one of the reasons why he has a God. Okay, he has a God also because he served that particular God, no other God. He didn't serve the God of the Philistines or the God of the Romans or the God of the Greeks. No. He served the living God. My servant the branch, Zechariah chapter 3 verse 8. So the reason why it says that he has a God is not because of katasis. Katasis is not even found near for Jesus being a creature. Jesus is not a creature in the Bible. It doesn't say in John 1:1, en arche epoias en hate astan lagan. Okay, end quote. It doesn't say in the beginning God created the Logos. See how I changed the construction from ha logos to tan lagan, or don logon, okay, in that construction. You understand what I'm saying? Because he would have been the object of God's creation. Well, that's not there in the text. It's not there in any text in the Old Testament and in the New. And remember that the Old Testament is in the Old contained. The New Testament is in the New explained. The Old Testament is in the Old concealed. The New Testament is in the New revealed. Thanks, guys. Bye. For others, please stay tuned for the study entitled Somatica Anastasis to Yesu, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Thank you.